Welcome to the Writer's Den. I'm Jane Waters Thomas, and today we're going to be talking about something that we don't always get to talk about, but we certainly read every single day, and that's our local newspaper. We're going to be talking with Lenore Devore, who is the editor of the Lakeland Ledger, as well as senior reporter Suzie Schottelkotte. Welcome.
Thank you.
You know, when we talk about reading and writing, and you know, we've had poets and authors and just a lot of really interesting people. I don't think there's anything more interesting than what it actually takes to get one tiny article into a newspaper and what that looks like.
And to do that every day of the year, and to do it for two newspapers, because we also put out the News Chief and the monthly magazine Polk Life and myriad other special sections that come out on a monthly basis or throughout the year. So it does take a lot. It's a lot of fun, and we have really talented reporters and great editors who read their copy and hopefully get it into the paper without any errors, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. And Suzie?
It's a challenge every day. We're on very tight deadlines. It used to be when I started my career that, and we would look at the TV folks and kind of snicker because they have to race back to the office and get something on by 6, and we've got all day, and we can get it done when we at our leisure. And now we are under that same gun that the TV reporters always have been, which is we need to get it back to the office and get it online as fast as we can and keep updating it online as it goes. And so it's a lot more immediate, which is a much greater challenge to us as reporters.
I would think that it would have to be just, you know, just the deadline, just the thought of deadline, and you're taking a very creative mind. If they're writing, they're clearly creative, and you have 3 hours to make that happen, and every word has to work, and then the editor has to make sure it's right. It has to be a significant challenge to take all of your creative words and get them to a place within a specific amount of time where they're actually going to work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So my hat's off to you, because you know, I sit with my journal and think I'm the most fabulous writer on the planet, but I do it for days, and then I go, I don't like that. You have the hours and minutes.
Right.
So a lot has changed, and both of you have been working within journalism for 30+ years, and I would have to think that a lot has changed for you. I know from the outside looking in, it doesn't look the same at all even 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It looks as though you've had to downsize staff, which I would think makes things a bit of a more challenge. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to talk about what the newsroom atmosphere looks like on a daily basis for your writers.
So taking the overview, and then Suzie can get more specific, but yes, it is. I mean, we don't have people who specialize in just one thing anymore. I like to look at it as we're all kind of generalists, and some of us have topics that we're very passionate about, like Robin Williams says, education. But if you see, every once in a while, she'll go out, she'll be covering a copy on a Sunday night. So the world really has changed. I mean, the newsrooms have downsized. The paper has changed sizes in a lot of cases, not just in our market, but in a lot of markets across the country. And the internet has really radically changed what we do. And we will put 2 paragraphs online to begin with, and then it'll be 4 paragraphs an hour later, and then maybe 8 inches, and you know, and then when you read it in the story in the paper the next day, maybe it's a half a page story. So it is, but I think people have so much passion for our business and for what we do and for writing that many people, like Suzie, have just adapted to the changes along the way.
Suzie, from a writing standpoint, what are some of the most significant challenges on a daily basis that you encounter? You know, you're out in the community a lot. You're racing around trying to get the next story. What are some of the things that, as a writer, that you just go, man, this is just a challenge today?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that every day is different. And in order for me to report on an issue that's going on in the community, or on a sewer line that has burst on Wabash Avenue in Bartow, I have to be able to understand that. I have to understand it much more intricately than what I'm going to put in the paper. But in order for me to condense it down to a 12-inch story, I have to understand the big picture. And every single day is different. So it's just keeping up with that. It's just constantly learning and constantly being challenged with a whole new subject that even after 31 years I might have to tackle. And I can be covering city commission one day and courts the next. And as Lenore said, our downsizing has resulted in so much more diversity in what we cover. So you really have to be ready to go into any situation and be able to report that in a way that people are going to be able to read it and understand exactly what we're talking about and feel like they were there.
What are some of the challenges? And I don't even want to say challenge because I don't feel that it's a challenge. I think it's exciting when we have a new generation of professionals enter our field and they bring with them some exciting new differences that, you know, universities are now teaching that maybe weren't teaching before. And you guys have some younger reporters and journalists in your office. How does that change even the face of what is happening with our local news and our daily news?
So you'll hear it here first, but we're reorganizing the newsroom. Suzie doesn't even know this. Our staff meeting's next week. But we actually are going to have 5 teams, so 5 different teams of 5 reporters each, and each team's being led by someone who I think probably the top age is going to be 27 years old. Now they're not editors, but they are people that are going to be, that are designed and put in place to help others come along and learn some new technology. Up until a couple months ago, I had never used Snapchat, Periscope, all those new things that are out there. And you're right, they are learning it, and they're the leaders in their classes in college. One graduate, Caitlin Pearson, she just started Snapchat at the University of Florida. So it is a very exciting time, and you try some things and you decide, yeah, maybe that's not something we want to do very often, like Snapchat, we're being very selective. But then Facebook and Twitter, Suzie, every reporter, myself, you know, we have our pages and our Twitter handles, and we tweet from scenes of accidents, even if it's just to say these roads are closed, beware. So, you know, we need our veterans, their institutional knowledge, their understanding of issues to train the young reporters, but then the young reporters also help train us on new technology.
I think it's very exciting that we have a new generation of journalists in the newsroom doing some really cool things with technology. What does that feel like from your side of the table, Suzie, as being the senior reporter going, we need to go talk to people? You know, as opposed to let's catch them on Facebook and get their information from that. How does that vary for you?
Well, I love social media, just personally, and so it has not been that difficult for me to incorporate that into my job because I see exactly where it fits. I see where, I do a lot of Twitter, and I see where tweets can work and can fit, and it's exciting to me to be able to get that information out as quickly as we can. I think that the tenets of reporting are still the same. I think we have to contact people and verify information, and that sort of thing doesn't change. But I think it's exciting to be able to get the word out there. I personally am very competitive, so it's exciting to me to feel like I've gotten it out there first. And in newspapers, that always wasn't the case when we were going up against television. So now I can feel like I'm part of that whole bigger picture, but I embrace it. So, and I think a lot of the veteran reporters are embracing it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Have we lost reporters as a result, do you think, of what the new requirements are of technology? Have we lost some of the guys and gals that just the transition was too much?
Absolutely. You know, there are some people who've changed industries completely because they didn't want to learn new things. But the fact is, like Suzie said, I mean, everyone in our newsrooms embraced it. They have goals and standards that they have to meet for Facebook and for Twitter every day, every month, every year. And the main part of our reporting, as Suzie said, is, check, verify. We just don't take information off of someone's blog post or their Facebook post without checking. But yeah, there are people who couldn't keep up, didn't want to, and they retired or they moved on. And it's not even veterans. There are some reporters who we hired. One recently, she probably worked with us for 6 months and said, yeah, this isn't for me. it's not really the life I envisioned. So, I mean, I think you have to have a passion for writing, but you also have to have a passion for people, because if you don't want to get to know them and get to learn their stories and to be a good listener and to be very, very inquisitive, then you're not going to make it.
Absolutely, wonderful. And you know, thinking about some of the things that, you know, reading your information and some of the things that you've created, one of the things that I just love is that you created the investigative reporting team. What prompted you to go, we need an investigative reporting team here?
It really, for me, it comes from a passion for that type of reporting and trying to give our readers something more. You know, we can give them features and we can give them breaking news and daily reports from the city commission meeting or the courthouse, but there's no one else who's really the watchdog of the community other than the local newspaper. And I'm really proud that we've been able to make a difference in the community because of the reporting we've done, whether it means you don't have to show your driver's license when you go into a school board meeting, or you know that the city of Lakeland spent, you know, $2.5 million or $250,000 to keep a grand jury presentment secret. So I think, you know, it's our mission. It's why I got into this business. It's why I care about what we do, and it's why I want to make sure that we're always digging a little bit deeper to see what's out there rather than just what people may want us to believe.
One thing that I've heard over and over, Suzie, is, you know, check your sources, check your sources. I've heard that from my friends that are reporters for years. You know, I have to check my sources. In validating a story, investigative reporting, I would think that that team would be instrumental in sharing information throughout the newsroom that would really just enhance everybody's next greatest story. Do you agree with that as the senior reporter there?
Absolutely, because as you're doing an investigative piece, you usually, I've done this several times myself, where I would find sources of information that I did not know existed. You know, I recently did a story about the law enforcement checking different people's driver's license and criminal history. I didn't know that there were several different places where you need to go look to see if somebody's criminal history or driver's license is being checked. I thought you would check with DHS&B and that would be it, but there are different places you need to go. By sharing that with the newsroom, we all learn. And the investigative team has been very integral in finding those pockets of information that we need to know about, so we know where to go to find information that we're looking for.
Wonderful.
And right now our investigative team is really our entire newsroom. You know, we still have Rick Russo and John Chambliss, but Chris Gwynn's been doing great stories on Tiger Town and on the city. Cliff Parody started the whole rape kit story, and he has a really great piece coming out on heroin in a couple of weeks. You know, but Suzie won the very first Integrity Florida report put out by one of our state trade organizations for her work looking through a lot of bills and different overtime issues and that type work down in the city of Mulberry. So it really has been a group effort, and like Suzie said, I mean, with everyone involved, it's really spread so that they can all be a part of that.
What does the typical day for you as a reporter look like, Suzie?
Oh, wow. They're all so different, but typically, you know, it's, wow, I have to think about that for a second. You know, generally, it's probably split about 50-50 between the office and being out in the field. You know, I work out in Bartow, and I work alone in my own office, so since I'm not in the Lakeland newsroom, I am out a lot, and I cover 3 cities. I cover Fort Meade, Mulberry, and Bartow, and I'm backup court reporter. So if our court reporter is not here or has too much going on, then I jump in and cover courts for him. But, you know, I generally try to get out and meet with people, either go to lunch with them, or I go to a lot of like group meetings where I can get in touch, just make contact with people. And then other time, if I'm in the office, I'm usually either working the phones, checking with sources on a story, or I'm writing.
How many reporters does it take to get the newspaper to print for the next day?
We have 25 right now, including our sports reporters, and that's covering 17 cities, the county commission, the school board, courts, you know, sports. So Yeah, it takes a lot.
That's a lot of editing.
It is.
That's a lot of editing.
It is.
And you know, one of the things that, you know, coming into this interview today that I most wanted to say was, man, you guys work on deadlines that people don't know about. You know, and to have accurate news with what you've shared, Suzie, just with you know, this is how we have to talk to people. 50% of my time is out in the world, 50% of my time is in the office, and I'm interviewing, and then I still have to make a deadline that's extremely real. Lenore, what does that deadline look like from the editor's office?
Get me that story now.
A lot of hovering.
Yeah.
A lot of hovering.
Yeah. So, you know, we're still working on that as the times have changed, and you know, our business is changing almost every day. So we're trying to get stories in earlier, and that's a little bit of a struggle yet. But usually we have most of the stories by 5, 6 p.m., and then we cover a lot of late meetings. So we try to get most of those in the next day. But really from the editing side, you know, I don't ever have as much time as I want to edit a story anymore. And I'm not a frontline editor, but I do a lot of editing our investigative and some of our enterprise stories, a big package we have coming out on poverty on Sunday for 5 days. So I edited all those, and you know, it's a struggle sometimes when you want more time, and just like Suzie may want more time to write the story and get it just perfect, I want more time to edit it. But you know, we work really well as a team, and everyone's just, you know, they understand the needs and what we have to do and the struggles of the editor. So I think it's, even though they have deadlines, most of them are pretty good.
Well, you know, I recently had the opportunity to meet Mr. Drake, your new publisher, and new to me, not new to the Ledger. He's been here for, I think, since 2014, is that right?
Right.
And he seems very community spirited and,
Yes.
and has a real finger on the pulse of what's going on in community. For me, I left that meeting going, this is very cool. This is a fun vibe that I'm catching from the Ledger. How have things changed in like the last 5 years for you at the Ledger?
Well, first of all, my job changed. So I went from managing editor and I was promoted to editor at right about that same time. So, you know, just like Kevin, I'm out in the community a lot more, and you know, everything's fast paced. There's not a minute in my day that's not planned out the day before. And my calendar could be booked every minute, and then 15 things will happen, and I move things. So it's just, you know, it's nonstop. It's getting out in the community. It's working with reporters. It's making sure nothing falls through the cracks. It's working with our other sister papers in Florida and around the country now, since Gatehouse owns 500. You know, so it's really, it's fun. Like Suzie said, it's different every single day, and that's challenging, but for me, exciting. I work really well on deadline. I'm one of those people. I don't procrastinate, but if you throw 6 things at me and say you want them tomorrow, I'll find a way to get them all done. So the challenge of our business and trying to keep people motivated, trying to make sure they have the resources they need, that I back them in legal issues, that I get the answers they need, you know, that's the really fun part of the job. And being able to say, we produce this, what lands in your driveway, we do this every single day, and we're very, very proud of it, because you know, while some people may have problems with some of our writing or some of our reporting or our editorial stance, you know, I'm very, very proud of the work that our reporters do. And we were just named the Gatehouse Newspaper of the Year in the large newspaper division. So that was really exciting for us. We were just bought by the company. This was the first year we participated. And it really was about our reporting, about the look of the paper, about our magazine, about the community forums that we've held, about our investigative team. So it really showed the depth of what we do in the newsroom.
So from newspaper to special publications, you know, I look at the newspaper, and that's our daily read. We know what's going on. We know what politicians doing what the cities are doing. We kind of get the vibe and the importance of what's in community. And then I look at Polk Life, really cool magazine, high quality magazine, fun stories. Suzie, what would be the difference for you as a writer in writing one of those really fun stories to writing like something happened at the courthouse?
It is a dramatic change. dramatic, it is wholly different to write for the magazine than what it is to write for the newspaper. The newspaper is a lot more stilted, if you will. But when you get into magazine writing, it's a lot breezier, it's a lot more conversational. I love it. It's something I really enjoy doing because there's a lot more freedom in writing for the magazine. You still have to check your facts, you still have to make sure that you're accurate. That's paramount in anything that we write, but it does kind of open up a little bit more creativity in writing for the magazine than it does than writing for what you said, a murder case in the courthouse. Now in our life section, that I think too allows for a little bit more creativity than what we have in hard news. But it is a fun break. I've written several stories for the magazine and I really enjoy doing it because it is kind of a fun break to let myself go a little bit.
Wonderful, and I'll tell you, I was reading the story on Paul Schultz recently, and you know, if you're from the Winter Haven or the east side of the county, you kind of know Paul does some really neat things. Artist, has kangaroos, you know. But the thought I had reading it was, how fun is this? How fun is this that we have this type of publication right here in our county, and it really does showcase some neat things that we do here. Is there a special team that just works on that publication, or is it everybody kind of gets to do it?
Yeah, everybody gets to do it. And you know, there are some people who want to be just part of the magazine, and there are some editors who want that. But I really think, for some of the reasons that Suzie said, you know, it lets you stretch, it lets you write a different kind, and it's fun. I mean, I've written a bunch of stories for the magazine, from my trip to Ireland as a travel story to the retired canine Max, you know, in the last edition that I really loved. And so even I get into it, and you know, it's just fun. I always tell people it's the lighter side of what we do. Like Suzie said, it's not a court case, a murder case, or it's not a city commission budget, you know. It's really, they're fun, and that's the beauty of Polk County, that magazine. It's what's so good about where we live, the people and the place.
Well, you know, you guys cover so much, and that's your entire job. The entire job is to tell us everything that's happening, the moment that it happened, and don't you dare be late. Have it there. We want to read it tomorrow morning. One of the publications, though, that you do that I use probably more than anything else is Time Out. What a cool piece that is, that it's just, here's what's happening, here's some really cool things going on in community. What does it take to put that together? And when I look at like the menu of things that our Ledger writes in Polk County, and you say you have 25 reporters, I go, where do they find the time to do this?
Right. Well, Time Out does have one reporter devoted to it, Lance Ferguson. He's our entertainment writer, so he does most of the writing in there. And we have some other people, you know, who will chime in and write a story if it's from an area that they're expert in, or maybe from Bartow that Suzie wants to cover for it. And then we have some freelancers. We do From My Seat, which is a movie review from our readers, and we rotate that once a month. And you know, so that's kind of fun, and it's something different. But yeah, there's a lot of work, and our editors get involved in updating listings, and we're going through all that right now, and it is very time consuming. But you know, Time Out is our weekly entertainment guide, and we're very devoted to it. So I get involved. I do restaurant reviews every other week, and you know, we have
that has to be fun.
Yeah, yeah. Not when the food's bad.
No, that's a lot of phone calls the next day, probably.
Yes. Been there.
Which that is actually the perfect way to ask this question. Oh my goodness, what happens in your office when somebody is not happy about what just was written?
Yeah, I spend a lot of time on the phone, whether it's a bad restaurant review, or last week we had community enter instead of community center. And you know, there's a lot of explaining. Sometimes when you just talk with people and try to get them to understand how the error was made, and you know, most of them are pretty understanding. Some, and you know right away, there's nothing I can say to this person that's going to change their mind. So listen, you know, and explain and then try to end it as quickly as possible. But most people, especially as we've been transitioning in the last month, have been really wonderfully understanding whether they call or whether they email.
That's nice to hear. That is nice to hear. You know, because I do know reporters, I go, man, and I always instantly go, they write on deadline, and that's hard. That's hard by itself. And then to get so much content into the newspaper so that you have a real product has to be a challenge.
Right.
You know?
And there are people who say, well, you run more corrections than any other newspaper in America. Well, the reason that is we correct almost every single thing that we see is wrong. Now, maybe not a spelling error or typo in a story or a headline, but we are the newspaper of record for Polk County, so we believe in getting it right. Whereas other newspapers sometimes say, well, that's not really a very big error, so we're not going to correct it. You know, we correct a lot of things. In tomorrow's paper, you'll see one about two people who, when I saw the paper this morning, they looked different in two different photos, and I questioned it, and yes, it was wrong. So we're going to correct that tomorrow. You know, we just really believe that getting it right is very important, and even if that makes us look stupid in the eyes of some, but we are human and we do make mistakes. So it's better for us to correct them than just to let people believe that what we wrote was right.
Absolutely, and you know, and I've always felt that the Ledger, and I call it our newspaper. That's, you know, if you're in Polk County, it is your newspaper, news chief or the Ledger. It really is newspaper with the heart, and I don't know that I've met, certainly recently, reporters that lack any part of heart in what they do, in trying to share the most accurate story in the amount of time that they can do that. As we kind of wrap up our interview, I want to just you know, give a shout out to all the reporters that are out there that are doing hard work, and then our editors at the Ledger who make sure that it gets there and it's right as it can be.
Right.
Darn it, you know. But Suzie, I just want to kind of end with, what do you think the future of reporting looks like for the writer?
I think there's definitely a future for the writer, because somebody has to be the watchdog for the community. And I feel bad for any community that does not have a newspaper staff that is looking out for their best interests, that is looking out for the expenses in the city of Mulberry, who's looking out for what's going on up in Lakeland when they're fighting to release a grand jury presentment. When things like that are going on, there has to be somebody who's looking out for the people. And I think as long as that need is there are going to be writers out there who are going to be in that position to provide that service. The venue is probably going to change. I think that probably in the not too distant future we'll probably lose print, but I think
we all shuddered.
I know, I shudder at the thought, because that is what brought me into it. But I think there always are going to be writers. I think I have a passion for what I do, and I love what I do. And I think there are always going to be those people who feel the same way. You know, we have, like Lenore said, we have lost writers over the years, and I understand that. But I think there are always going to be those who are just so passionate about what they do that they just cannot walk away.
You know, the newspaper is what we read every day. The writers that are behind those stories are the most read writers we have in our community. I think that is important to know, that it's a big job to do what Suzie and all of the writers are doing, and it's a giant job what the editors are doing. And so I just want to thank both of you for coming on the show and sharing what it is to be in the newsroom at the Ledger, some of the changes that are kind of crazy, and just where we're going, and it's very exciting. So Suzie, thank you so much for being with us today, and Lenore, thank you for all that you do. You're community-wide. Be checking out the Ledger and all of the great publications that the Ledger is producing for us right here in Polk County. Thank you for joining us on the Writer's Den.